And this is the expungement tutorial co-sponsored by the Sacramento County Public Law Library and the Voluntary Legal Services Program. The information provided in this video is intended as a tool to assist you with dismissing your convictions and not intended as legal advice. You may wish to seek legal counsel to assist you with the expungement process. Hi, I'm Alan. Welcome to this expungement tutorial. Today we will be discussing how you prepare your expungement forms. I'm here today at the Sacramento County Law Library at 609 9th Street. We will be using three websites to prepare our documents. The first is Sacramento Law Library. That is where you have found this video under free videos, presumably. And you click over here and you can see all of the other different offerings that the Sacramento Law Library offers. Very helpful place. Many issues. The other website we will be using is ours at VLSP.org, Voluntary Legal Services Program, and we will click to the left here on Criminal Records Expungement. I am the supervisor of this clinic, and we will be more than happy to prepare your documents for you if you want to follow this process. Our information line, which will also help you to follow our process, is 916-551-2155. And once again, we're more than happy to help all income limited clients, and that's essentially 200% of poverty. You can see we offer other services over here which are quite helpful and requiring attorneys, and attorneys will assist you with those also. So the third website we will be using is the Sacramento County Courthouse Index. So today we're going to talk about the documents needed to expunge, the reason for expungement, and what you get for going to all this trouble. Essentially, if you've been convicted of a crime, then you are not ineligible, but unpreferred for a lot of employment positions. The primary purpose for expunging a criminal record is to qualify for employment positions. It does help with other issues, and the expungement will not remove the criminal record. It will remove the notation of conviction, and that will provide you relief in the employment field because it restricts employers, all employers in the state, to not considering your criminal past. So once you have expunged and you are a non-convicted person, employers in this state are not allowed to consider that record. The record will still be used for other purposes. Primarily, it seems, housing. A lot of landlords like to check. The expungement will benefit you in that area also, but it's not codified, so the landlord does still get to use that information. Remember, it is codified for employment, so the employer, if he does consider your record, once all of your expungements are affected, is violating the law. So that's the reason why you expunge. It does bind the employers to not considering your record once you remove all of your convictions. And in this way, and the purpose of this law is so that you are regarded on your employment skills rather than on something that you have no impact on your past other than to do what you're doing now, which is to remove the conviction and make yourself a person who is eligible for the restrictions of the Labor Code 432.7, and if you're applying for public work, 432.9. So an expungement, as I said, is a removal of the conviction. The court that granted the conviction must be the court that removes it. So you will be applying, and applying means filing paperwork with the court that convicted you. We run a clinic that will prepare documents for all 58 counties in the state. We do not do out-of-state or prison convictions. If you have a prison conviction, I will discuss briefly and in a moment how to read the record, which may assist you to prepare your own document to cure the prison conviction. The record remedy is known as a certificate of rehabilitation and pardon, and that is all we will discuss here. It is not an expungement. If you did prison time, then you cannot expunge that conviction. You would need to do a certificate of rehabilitation and pardon. So the first thing you need to know is what forms do you need to prepare your expungement. The forms will be submitted to the court and they are called petitions. So let's take a look at one. The first thing you need to do will find which court you've been convicted in. Most people know that or are pretty certain of what it is. So let's go to the website here in Sacramento. We're going to take a look at the Sacramento County Court website. It is the only website that we have access to. Other than that, you can call the court where you were convicted, talk to the clerk there. If it was recent enough, they'll have the records. If it was not, then you'll need to watch closely the section on reading your criminal history, which will also discuss how you obtain that. So that'll be edited in here briefly in the future here in a moment. So let's take a look at this record. The items that we need are all right here and available under disposition. And this person was convicted, as you can see, a guilty plea, and the notations indicate that he did not have a driver's license, that he was convicted of, and that it was a DUI. So there you can see on this index, which is available for $1, you have all the information you need to prepare your petition. So let's go to the petitions, which are available on the Judicial Council website or on your local court website. You'll be looking for Judicial Council forms, and so am I. And here it is. So this form is titled CR 180, and it works in conjunction with CR 181. The CR 180 is the petition, which is the form you use to ask the court to remove your conviction, which is noted as dismissed after conviction. So this top part of the form is called the header, and it wants your personal information. Since you are filing on your own behalf, attorney for, where it says attorney for and name, you will write in pro se. That's 3 words, IN, next word PRO, next word SE. It means that you are representing yourself. Here you will need your name, capital letters is always preferred, your date of birth. You can see this is a very simple form. The header only requires your pertinent information, your personals. So then we come down here and it wants to know a date. The petitioner was convicted of a violation of the following offenses or was granted deferred entry of judgment for the following offenses. So it's only asking for convictions, and that is what you will be looking for on your record. If you have been brought into court and the case was dismissed, that status is already protected under the Labor Code 432.7 and 432.9. It's not to be considered for employment purposes, and that is codified also under those codes I just said. So let's go back to John Smith over here, and you can see the form is asking for the severity of his offense, and all he had were misdemeanors, and he was charged with 3 of them. So we're not particularly interested in the charge. We are interested in the conviction. The form only asks for convictions, and he had 2 of them. So let's go back to the form, and it requests the code. And he was convicted under the vehicle code. It was a DUI and no driver's license. So here you write in the word vehicle. Over here you write in this number, which is a section of the code that they're asking for. In this case it was 23152A. And they also charged him with a B, which is over the limit, and the A is under the influence. So the A is considered to be a lesser offense, and he pled out and did not take over the limit. So he also took a conviction for 12,500, which is no driver's license in possession. So those are the two charges that he was convicted of. The disposition code says guilty and guilty. Those are the charges, the convictions that are eligible for expungement. Those are the crimes he's convicted of. He was not convicted of the other over the limit, so that one becomes irrelevant. We don't consider it anymore. Let's go back to our petition, and we will write in section 23152A under section, and then 12500A also under section. Remember, although he was charged with 3, he was only convicted of 2, so we're only putting 2 in here. That's the proper preparation. It asks for the type of offense, felony, misdemeanor, so they were both misdemeanors. And then it's going to ask you for an opinion. Eligible for reduction to misdemeanor? No, it's already a misdemeanor. Eligible for reduction to infraction? That's specialized knowledge that probably you don't know. You don't need to know it, just write no. In fact, the 12500A is eligible to be reduced to an infraction. Does that have any relevance to employment? No. Unless the employer has some particular need for you to expunge a citation does not typically rise to the level of needing to be expunged. It's not a consideration in most employment applications. However, since this person, if he had been convicted, since this person is filing for the expungement and he's aware that he could have it reduced to infraction, you might as well say yes there, and maybe the court will reduce it. Remember, for employment purposes, this whole record is not to be considered, so all of these little niceties in filing are not important. You just want to gain the status of having employers restricted to how they can read your record, which is not to consider it at all once you have removed all of your convictions. So this box here is a little bit tricky, but not really. You just pay attention to what you're doing here. The code, once again, would be the name of the book, a vehicle or penal, sometimes insurance fraud, in which case you would write insurance code in there, I see. And the section is the number that you'll find on your paperwork, whether it's the index or your order of probation. If you did not get any documents from the court that you have retained, and when you call the courthouse where you were convicted, they tell you they have no documents. Don't be surprised. They're only required to keep records for 3 years on misdemeanors. Then you'll have to go and get your criminal history from the Department of Justice. So let's take a look at how we do that with our court here in Sacramento. Many of people viewing this will have convictions here. That seems to be the process. Let me go ahead and dial this up again since it doesn't seem to be loading. So we would go to www. Clear that. Bear with me. www.saccourt.com should get you there. And what we are going to look at first is how to read your index. So this is an online record that some courts keep. Sacramento has a fairly comprehensive one. We're changing it right now. As of July, it will be a paid service unless you go to the courthouse where you can access your information for free at a kiosk there. This index is going to have more documents and more current information than the clerk themselves. They would have to go to archive to pull some of these records. So it's a great service that the court is offering to the public. So let's see how you access that. We'll want to go to criminal. Once we get to criminal, we are looking to dismiss our conviction, expungement process. Click on that and it gives you all of the requirements. We've discussed some of them. You can take a look through that yourself. It is right there. And you proceed down until you come to the link where the forms are. And we will be coming back to this. So that is how you access the forms. Now let's get the information necessary to fill them out. Okay, so we want to go to search for criminal case information. Here we go. You would first need to log in. Okay, so once we've logged in, use your computer skills. So you log in and you are going to click on criminal, and you'll most likely be searching by name, which is $1 cost. So you drop the price menu. You only need one name search since you're only clearing your record. So you purchase that, and it'll go into a different screen as of July 1st where you put in your credit card information. Remember, you can access this for free at the courthouse, 729th Street. Okay, so then it defaults to civil. We're once again looking for criminal information, so go back there. You've already paid the fee, and so we type in your name, and in this case, we're just using the most generic name I can think of, which is John Smith. And it'll pull up a list of names. However, you will use your birth date, so it'll just pull up your name most likely. And then we are looking at the case number here, very important information. This will be transposed or copied onto your petition to the court. So here is one of the pieces of information that is required, the case number or case name. And then we come down here to the disposition box. All this other information is interesting but not particularly relevant to the process. So we come down here to the charge dispositions. This is what occurred as a result of the prosecution. This person pled no contest, and the code that they violated and pled no contest to, which is a guilty plea, was 666, petty theft with a prior, and the disposition date also will go, these pieces of information right here also go onto the form. Disposition date is your conviction date, and the charge will, the code number itself will go on the petition. Okay, so if you have other cases, then you would click on those cases and do basically the same thing. You're looking for 3 pieces of information: the case number, the charge that you were convicted of, and the date. So a lot of people will have cases that did not result in conviction. This person was not so good in court and did not have that. So every one of his cases needs to be expunged. He has not done so, whoever he is. And so that's a quick overview of it. Presumably you've seen your Department of Justice and you understand how to derive the information from that form and shoot it onto this form. So let's continue. And if you had a felony or misdemeanor, which remember is why you're doing this, if you have that level of severity, then you would want to check this box. So this box typically gets checked for all expungements. If you fulfilled all of the conditions of your probation, check that box. Of course, you have to have completed all of your terms of probation or have termed out early. So there is a form for early term of probation. Many counties do not consider that. Sacramento does. Sacramento has a policy of 2/3 of the term done, and all of your other terms completed. They'll consider releasing you from probation and expunging at that point. Other counties also do that consideration. I would recommend that if you are on probation and you've satisfied all the terms, paid the fines and fees, did whatever programs were ordered, then you call the county and see if they do the process of early term of probation. Okay, so box 2, you check because you have an expungement that you're doing for a felony or a misdemeanor. A, B, or C refers to how well you did on your probation. If you fulfilled the conditions for the entire period without any problems with the court, check that box. That's more or less a shoo-in. If you did file an early term or somebody filed it for you and your probation was not gone to full term, if they gave you 3 years and you got off in 2.5, then you'd want to check that box. If you had a problem with your probation, then you're going to check C, should be granted in the interest of justice, and you're going to locate the form MC031 on the Sac Court website or from the court clerk, or by coming into our clinic at 2411 Alhambra Boulevard. Monday morning is when we make our appointments. Although our literature declares to be there at 7, lately it has been you can come in anytime on Monday to make an appointment. So that's a lot more convenient for people. You'll make your appointment in person and then keep it on the appointment time. We will assist you. So that's the bare bones of how to do the petition. So it's important to consider that you probably not going to be looking at box 3. You're going to be looking at box 2 and the grid here. So a lot of people have had some sort of imperfection in their probation, and they probably should check 2C, should be granted relief in the interest of justice. The reason for this is it gives the court more latitude. They have expressed that they prefer that box if there was anything other than just granted probation and never contacted probation again. So that would have been informal with no problems. So if you check 2C, they want you to attach Form MC031. I repeat, I know I mentioned this before, but it is important because it's not considered proper. If you had a probation imperfection and you do not attach a declaration, it may not be considered. So the Form MC031 is also called the declaration, and hopefully you can find it on the website. I was not able to. Not this morning anyway. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. And you could also access it from the court clerk or from our clinic if you choose to use our process. If not, by calling our information line at 916-551-2155. We do offer you other options on how to proceed on your expungement. So now we're on to the second page of the first form, the CR 180. Put your name at the top. Ignore 4 and 5 unless you did have a felony county jail, in which case you'll have to meet those terms listed under there. So you would check either one of those boxes depending on how you were released from your county jail sentence. Most people are going to be skipping right to the bottom to number 8, and this is most probably yourself. So you would skip right to number 8, ignore all the confusing in between, and check 1203.4 if you had probation, and 1203.4A if you had the unusual circumstance of not getting probation. So most people will be checking 8, 1203.4, and it is that simple. The rest of it is confusing and most likely does not apply to you. Don't forget to put your case number in here, which you will find at the top of this form on the index. The case number is one of the 3 pieces of information that you will need for your petition. That is number 1 piece. Number 2 piece, again, is your severity, your conviction. Make sure that you check your disposition code to see that it was a conviction. The other code that indicates conviction is no contest. So if you have a no contest plea, you're convicted. So you would want to fill out your expungement petition. And the date, of course, is the disposition date that they're interested. So all of the information that goes in your grid is in this grid here on the index, if you're filing in Sacramento. If not, then refer to your criminal history that you got from the Department of Justice or whatever form you have. They all require the case number, the date of conviction, which is also your date of disposition, and your charge that you were convicted of. Okay, so let's go back to the forms, and now we'll be looking at the order. So this is CR 181. You also will need to fill this in, even though it looks like it might be something the court does. In fact, you do the first 2 pages on this one also. You have your heading, which requires the same information. Remember, you're in pro se for attorney. And if you don't have a business, you just skip that. Put your address and your case number. Print your name here, put your date of birth and your case number. And that's it. You're done with those 2 forms. So once again, that might be a little confusing, but all the rest of the CR 181 is for the court to fill out. All you are doing is your heading up here. And that's your CR 180 and your CR 181. If you need an early term, then that process is known as a 1203.3 early term of probation. We do those at 2411 Alhambra Boulevard. The form is not online. You would have to access that from the court clerk. We are always happy to do all of your procedures, and the one thing that we have yet to talk about, and it is in its own way the most important thing, you must meet the primary requirements for the expungement as established by the code, which is that all the terms of your sentence be completed. All the courts will require this, plus they'll look at your performance on probation. So the least trouble you had while you were connected to the court, the more probable that you will be expunged on your first round. If you are denied, then you are going to keep filing. Generally, we allow a 4 to 6 month period between decisions. That gives the court some time for things to have changed in your life, or more time for you to have shown good conduct. The courts all vary in this requirement. Just hope you have a nice court. And most of them are. This process is known to be a rehabilitative process, but they do still have their restrictions, and the courts do have their latitude in how to grant this. If you did have problems on probation, and remember that would include another charge, then you do want to write a declaration. If you can't locate the form, then just attach it to your first page of your CR 180 and attach it with a staple in the left-hand corner. That's probably good enough for the courts. In your declaration, you'll want to tell them what you're doing now. Essentially, you're presenting yourself as a person of good conduct at this time, and that the expungement will help you continue with your rehabilitative efforts. You might just be a little less formal than that and tell them what you're doing. I'm working now, but I'm not making enough money. I'm not making the kind of money I would like. I don't have the job that I like, and my conviction is keeping me from having my employment improved. So that would be an example of the content of your declaration. It is very important to expunge, not only for employment, but just so you are not a convicted person anymore. A person should not be represented by the bad moments of their life, which is what having a remaining conviction does to you. It gets you judged by that one or several moments of your life where you were, not making the type of decisions that, you should have been. So it's important to remove the conviction so that your record cannot be considered for employment. Thank you for watching this video.